marry the house, date the rate. Like
nonsense.
People are joking now, like that's going to go down in history as like the worst advice ever, simply because mortgage rates did not do what most people predicted. They stayed higher for longer. And, for a lot of people, it turned into, hey, what happened? I thought I had a 1.0 buy down in 2022. And in 23, I was going to refinance to a 4.99. What happened to that plan, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor and mortgage broker? But, a lot of things are quite honestly out of everybody's control.
Alrighty, folks, we are going to talk about a very important and critical call on mortgage rates. If you don't know who Barry Habib is, you need to look him up. Barry Habib has won the award multiple times, actually back-to-back, I think, for correctly forecasting mortgage rates. Barry Habib just came out with his latest call for 2025, and folks, I'm just going to say, shocking. We're going to dig into what Barry Habib is calling. Again, remember, this is no slouch. He has won the Crystal Ball Award multiple times, so he is worth listening to. But I got to tell you, when I heard the number he called, I almost fell out of my chair. Mr. Matthew, how you doing?
I'm doing well. And I was on a call Monday. Barry Habib, well respected guy. If anybody hasn't heard of him, put out his real estate and mortgage forecast for 2025. Like you said, he's won Crystal Ball Award. I mean, quite honestly, people thought he was crazy for calling 4.5% home price appreciation last year. And I think he nailed it. And it's always on record. Somebody like that who speaks often enough and to enough people, like you can't hide from your predictions. And so it'll be interesting to get into, because I think there might be, Barry Habib, Michael Zuber. I might land somewhere in between as far as where I think mortgage rates are headed. But, there's going to be no bigger driver of how many real estate transactions are transacted in 2025 than mortgage rates. I think we all agree with that. And so this number is important. Where mortgage rates are Q2, Q3, Q4 of 2025 is going to drastically affect what happens in real estate. When we get to the number, which Barry predicts, if his number gets reached, real estate's going to go bananas.
Let me be clear. If Barry Habib's call is right, all of my forecasts, every transactions, price, everything I've called for 2025 will be wrong, and probably massively wrong.
Yep. All right. So you want me to spill the beans and then?
Yeah. Why don't you just throw the number out there? We don't need to tease them, but then we could break down how the heck he got there.
Right. So 5.85%, 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And, I'm of the camp where I see the justification for the number. I just don't think that is 6 or 9 months out. I think that might be 24 or 30 months out. As far as how soon we get to that number. But I think we agree, sub 6% mortgage rates unlock sellers, unlocks millions of buyers.
It's an entirely different real estate game.
Yeah. Real estate transactions probably go up 20 to 25% year on year if we get sub 6% interest rates. And so,
so let's play this out with a little bit, because I don't only think Barry Habib's call for I'm just going to say sub 6% mortgage rates. I mean, in my mind, it's one thing to say on December 31st, 2025, we're going to have mortgage rates sub 6%. Like, I could squint and kind of go, okay, we're going to be, heading that direction because we had a Q3 recession. I mean, I could get there, but I think Barry Habib is talking about sub 6% a lot sooner than December 31st.
Yeah, right. And I don't recall exactly. For some reason in my head, I thought that the call was for 6 months out.
So Q3.
But maybe it's by year end. But let me see if I can share my screen because I think it's.
Oh, yep. Something's coming.
Ba-bing. And
there we go.
Again, highly respected. I love Barry Habib. He had,
he's great.
Forecasts for inflation, forecasts for mortgage, forecasts for real estate, and what the Fed was going to do. This prediction of 5.875 has the 10-year treasury going to 3.6. Just to remind people too, because we've talked about it, you've talked about it, I've talked about it. The 10-year treasury and the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, if you look back 50 years, there's about a 1.6 to 2% difference.
Correct.
So if, the 10-year treasury is at 4%, mortgage rates are going to be 5.6 to 6%. That's historically. Over the last few years, tons of volatility. That spread's gone up. That chart's actually here, Mike, where this is the historic spread between the 10-year and the 30-year fixed rate mortgage.
Love that chart.
Got all the way up to 3.1% in October of 23. It's come down though. Check it out. It's come down to 2.5%.
Yep.
And so to get this 5.875, we need the 10-year to come down from I think it's 4.69 today to 3.6. And then everybody is in agreement with, over time, as we see less volatility in the bond market, like this spread, it might not come down to 2%. It's not going to come down to 1.8, but all it has to do is come down to 2.25. And then you just add 3.6 on the 10-year to 2.25 on the spread, and you've got a 5.875. And so I guess here it is on his slide.
Yeah, 6 months.
Within the next 6 months. And so, credit to MBS Highway. I used their slides. I did my own rendition of this. It's going to go on my channel, but we don't have to share the slides anymore if you just want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really, I love the way Barry Habib is very rational, right? He's not emotionally tied up in this, and emotions can skew our feelings, right? This is not a feeling. I think it's very logical. I think, first off, I agree 1,000% that I think we're going to see mortgage spreads come in. I think 225 is, a safe bet. And it's even a safe bet in the next 6 months. I could see that. Where I would disagree, we actually hit 4.7 on the 10-year treasury sometime this morning. Given the Q1 variables, right? We got tariffs, we got tax cuts, we got migration, we got a lot of noise in the system, and generally speaking, the bond market doesn't like noise or uncertainty. I think the risk of rates going to 5% are higher than rates going to 4%, for example. And if they can't get to 3.6 unless they go through 4, is kind of how I break it out. So, could we end the calendar year at 3.6? Yeah, I again, as I said, I think in the opening, I could see that. Q1 has so much risk. In order to see it go from 5 to 3.6 in the next 90 days in Q2, it just seems unlikely to me. But again, I have never won the Crystal Ball Award. Barry Habib has won it multiple times. So if you're wondering who to listen to, Barry's got the hardware. I'm just wanted you to share my thoughts so they're on record.
Yeah, and I think that all of this stuff is subject to change and subject to volatility based on numbers. One thing I will say, when it came to his inflation prediction, I agree with the fact that if you take, I think it's core PCE, 18% of that inflation reading is what do they call it? Housing. They call it shelter. Yeah. So like a fifth of that reading is shelter, and shelter per the reading they use was like 4.8%.
Yeah.
If you look at CoreLogic, who does a better job, like their year-over-year rent is 1.7. And so like that one's overstated by 3%. And so I could see where we could over time have some lot more, favorable towards lower inflation numbers. And that is downward pressure on the 10-year and on mortgage rates and everything. But yeah, it's just a matter of like, how quick is that going to happen? Are we going to have like February and March, these blowout inflation numbers in the downward direction, where all of a sudden like we go from 2.8 to 2.6 to 2.3 or something? Like that would have to be the path in my eyes for this drastic lowering of the 10-year that's going to pull mortgage rates down with it. If you ask me, like, this stuff seems likely and probable, but like an 18 to 30 month window, not 6 months.
Yeah, that's where I come in as well. I think it's a little bit too much too soon. But again, I think Barry Habib's got the hardware. I've been talking about the base effect, which is essentially what Barry's pointing out, being set up for not this report, but the one in February, March, and April. There's a chance, again, mathematical chance, that we could have CPI headline under 2%, given the large base effect. It's just math, right? It's all it is just math. So it'll be interesting to see if we go that way. If we get a CPI reading under 2%, Barry could be right. I mean, I might even go as far as Barry might be right? If you go on the probability scale. I guess I'm too, the unknowns to me outweigh the knowns at this point. And generally speaking, that's not good. Right, for rates and things of that nature. But again, Barry's got the hardware, so
most of this stuff, where I've been optimistic over the last couple of years, I've been beat up so bad, and rates have been higher for longer. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm just gonna operate as if rates won't ever come down, because I, as a mortgage broker, the last thing I want to do is give somebody advice or something that is based on, a future event and say, here's how we're going to do it because rates will be here at this date. I think I saw something recently where this, marry the house, date the rate. Like,
nonsense.
People are joking now, like that's going to go down in history as like the worst advice ever, simply because mortgage rates did not do what most people predicted. They stayed higher for longer. And, for a lot of people, it turned into, hey, what happened? I thought I had a 1.0 buy down in 2022. And in 23, I was going to refinance to a 4.99. What happened to that plan, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor and mortgage broker? But, a lot of things are quite honestly out of everybody's control, myself included. And so, you just have to look at your specific situation, make the best call with what you got.
I got a couple of closing thoughts as we kind of wrap this episode up. First and foremost, Barry Habib is right again on his PCE, but also CPI headlines. 33 or 34% of CPI headline is shelter. So it's even a larger impact on that. Fed President Waller is out in the last 24 hours talking about, I want to get the quote correct because I talked about it this morning. So here it is.
Inflation stalled or something?
No, it's something about imputed. Here it is. Fed President Waller agrees with Jerome Powell. The inflation problem is mostly over. Why? The segments that are over 2% are imputed prices, which are perceived to be less indicative. Now, if you're asking yourself what the heck an imputed price is, it just means an estimate or a guess. So basically, Fed President Waller is saying, hey, the stuff that we can mathematically calculate, all under 2%. The stuff that we guess at, over 2%. And he's like, hey, I have less confidence in a guess than I do in actuals. And that's Fed President Waller saying that.
Yeah, that sounds like some reasonable, logic there.
Solid logic, dude.
Right. Yeah. I'm a public school kid, so imputed or whatever. I was like,
what the hell does that
about
mean?
The lag effect? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing to share with you, I just got off the conversation with Beth Traversal, top 1% agent, King County. Why is that important? In the Seattle area, the spring selling season starts in early January. Now, a lot of the country, it doesn't start till March or April. But what Beth is saying is they're heading into the year with very low supply, and she is already seeing demand pick up. And I talked about why, and she's like, Michael, I think people have given up on waiting for lower rates. They have come to accept 7%. And if that is true, it could be a problem, because at 7%, you're not selling. You're going to, for most people, they're going to keep their 3% mortgage. However, if you've been waiting on the sidelines for now 3 years because you lost out to bidding wars and you still want to get that house in that school district. It sounds like, according to Beth, people are accepting 7, which means demand up, supply not so much.
Still low. Yeah. And that's something I've been laid up in bed for the last week. So I've been reading a bunch of articles. Redfin came out with an article, I think yesterday, that, if they survey homeowners, like 1 in 3 say never selling. And then, part of Barry's report too, I like to look at the demographic stuff because it paints a picture of like what's coming in the future. Mm-hmm. X number of millennials are going to be this age at 40 years old. X percentage of them are going to be, quote unquote, home buyers. Home buying season for them as they hit these ages where they're married and kids and household formations. Like, it's bad enough that we had a decade straight of less building than household formations. If you look forward, Mike, like to your point and to Beth's point about like people are tired of waiting, I think they're maybe starting to realize you can't wait. No, yeah. It's not getting better. The data that Barry and his team have at MBS Highway, if you forward project Gen Z, millennials, all the folks that are going to be of home buying ages, and you kind of do some math around how many home buyers that equates to, you've got something like 1.9 million household formations per year against 1.3 million starts on the construction side. So you can't build 1.3 against 1.9 million in an already low supply environment. I'm not the smartest guy in the world or a PhD in economics. Supply and demand's pretty straightforward and simple, and it looks like it's getting worse. And so my thoughts around all of that and around affordability and stuff is like, you're not going to be able to fix it. You just got to find a creative way to beat it.
There you go. Matt, where can people find you?
Go to greatmortgagebroker.com. We are doing pre-approvals. We are talking to people in 48 states, and we want to help you get prepared. We want to help have these conversations around different ways, to figure things out in an environment that we all know, is not as affordable as it's been in years past, but there's still people buying. There's people figuring out a way to make it happen for them because like we talked about in this conversation, you talked about with Beth, next year, the year after, the year after that, it might not be better than it is today, right? So instead of, hoping things get better, you get better, you get more educated, you find a way to make it happen. Greatmortgagebroker.com.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you.